Greetings and salutations. Welcome to another episode of 365 Days of Gaming. I really appreciate you taking time to check out this video. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Greatly appreciate it, so thank you in advance. Today, we're going to talk about a racing game that was like no other racing game when it came out. Like it took gaming by storm, and it was crazy because it was all influenced by the Fast and Furious. So you already know what I'm talking about. This is Need for Speed Underground. Like when this game hit, it was the game. Like all of a sudden, like I said, Fast and Furious came out, and all of a sudden everybody wanted to, tune cars and do things like that and get them a Honda Civic and trick it out. And this game was basically that. Like it was like, all right, y'all, you all seem to want to do this. Let's do it. And also, the Need for Speed franchise was kind of getting dry. Like Hot Pursuit, had came and gone, and it was like, all right, what are they gonna do? And like Midnight Club actually at this time was a better game, although it wasn't focused more so on this type of racing. It was still kind of, it was killing it. But Need for Speed Underground came, and it was like, oh my goodness. I mean, just the soundtrack alone, like the number of children who cut this game on, and the first track is Get Low with Lil Jon and the East Side Boys and Ying Yang Twins. Like there's a lot of people who know that song who do not listen to that type of music. But it was great for us because we felt like, this was definitely speaking to, what we were listening to and kind of like what we were watching. And just like the early 2000s were greatly represented in this game, where like the decals of like the anime inspired graphics and, just the even the terrible clothes that now the graphics look, kind of washed. But back then it was like, man, these look like real cars, and look how you can add the stuff here and do this to it. And just, it felt like this whole, like it felt like it was real, I remember as crazy as this sounds, I remember, where we didn't have a day of doing work at school, which happened a lot in my high school. But I remember people bringing a PlayStation 2 in and Need for Speed Underground, and like 6 or 7 different people pulling out memory cards and being like, nah, can't nobody beat my car. And it was like really crazy because these weren't people that usually were talking about video games, but this type of game had like, crossover appeal. And, obviously it's the greatest hits game. And, you may be hearing some older gamers, if you're younger, talk about, racing games back when Need for Speed Underground was out, the different racing modes, whether you were doing the drift mode or the drag race mode. The drag race mode was where a lot of arguments had to be settled, where, like I said, people were pulling out memory cards. Like it felt like, what I wanted to see was Street Fighter Alpha 3 on the Dreamcast with the VMU. That never happened, but this definitely happened. They had the career mode, and I was like, during this time, I so wanted a Mazda Miata because that was the car I started off with in Need for Speed Underground. And, as you level up, you basically level up your car. So you take a car, there's a bunch of other cars in the game, but I always felt like I wanted to stick with my original car for as long as possible. So every time you got upgrades to it, you would increase all the stats, you get more, more customizable options for the visuals, more rims, more tire, all these things that you get for your car. So it felt like the car was leveling up with you. By the time you're done, your car looks nothing like it used to look when you originally got it. Like it's some sort of like Fast and Furious initial D monster at this point. But it went really fast and handled really well. But, I remember starting careers on this with me and my cousins and being like, all right, let's start with this car instead, and let's see how far we can get with it, before you switch to one of the higher end cars that you get later on in the game, because then you become unstoppable. But yeah, this game was like, it hit hard. And even Underground 2, which it felt like more people played it, but I didn't, for whatever reason. Like, we just played this one to death, and so I kind of burned myself out on it. But I recognized that it was a sequel, so it had more stuff to it and everything like that. But to me, the first Underground was one that left a lasting mark on me. So if you remember this game, or you remember how the effect it had post Fast and Furious, like, I'd love to hear from you. And either way, I appreciate you letting me reminisce with you. Y'all have fun. Y'all be safe. Peace.